months ago, I was retained by a client of mine and close friend to investigate allegations against Ben Roethlisberger in a Las Vegas nightclub that were absolutely identical to this Georgia girl story. And the outcome was that the young woman did not want to proceed, and we dropped it, and we never took any action. But there is a history here, and I can't say any further because we never proceeded with it, but there's a history here that is just super troubling.
Wow. I was going to ask this, before I heard that revelation, is, in your experience, Harry, there's a guy who is accused of rape, who has this, or a sexual assault, who has this pattern. Does he feel emboldened when the charges are dropped, or does he feel lucky? Yeah. Is he more likely to be scared straight?
Unless he's totally brain dead and we don't know, he would be scared because he has really walked a perilous line here, Jerry. There's a whole litany here. Not only my experience, I have connected with several other people that have experience. And, you know, there's only so far that he said, she said will get you. There are only so far that paying hush money will get you if hush money is paid. And there's only so far as, gee, we're all celebrities, we have a target on our back, will get you. When you see this much smoke month after month and continuously, and from, you know, this young woman was out with her sorority sisters in a bar in Georgia. My client was a graduate of college, 26 years old, out socially with a bunch of other young women, grabbed from the line, brought up to the VIP suite, the same old story.
Wow. You
would think that the handlers of Ben, his agent, who gets 3 to 4% of the contracts, however much of his endorsements, would say, Ben, you got to stop. Even if you haven't done anything and you're presumed innocent, you haven't been proved guilty of anything. These allegations are killing you. They're hurting your career. They're hurting your marketability. They're not good. And we know that you are there at 1:30 in the morning in the VIP room doing shots. Take a look at that, because that's when stuff happens.
Yeah.
And so I hope, Jerry, that someone will talk to this guy. He's a young guy. He's only, I think, 26 or 27 years
28.
old. He's got a lot of football left. He's got a lot of life left. As you know, I've represented dozens of people in Ben's shoes before, and most of them get it, some don't.
Well, if we're talking Vegas, and we're talking Lake Tahoe, and we're talking Georgia, and those are the three that we're aware of, then doesn't he qualify under the brain-dead category here, Harry?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah, I mean, how much Jerry and John and Meter is driven by the party atmosphere and alcohol.
Sure.
I mean, that, you know, you don't know. This isn't happening at 4 o'clock on a Starbucks while you're drinking lattes. This is 1:30 in a Vegas club, or 3:30 in a Vegas club, you know, with shots in the private room with, you know, bottles of Grey Goose and floating around and the music and the whole scene. And it's the scene that he has gotten himself caught up with, and the belief that he can walk. And so far, so good, but it's hurting him. He's hurt. He has been damaged, and the next one, the wrath of God's going to come down on him, if there is a next one.
Hey, Harry, even though medical personnel in Georgia found cuts, abrasions, and vaginal bleeding, the evidence was not there to determine whether it was or was not a rape. To that end, DA Fred Bright said we're not bringing charges. And I know the answer to this question is all of the above are the reasons he didn't bring charges. But would you list, in order of importance, the reason he didn't bring charges? A, her intoxication level. B, her letter saying she didn't want to participate in the prosecution. Or C and D, the lack of DNA evidence that eventually would have turned this into a he said, she said. Which one swayed Mr. Bright the most?
By far and away, the unwillingness of the victim to proceed. Once that occurred, and the young woman, for whatever reason, and there may be civil discussions going on, virtually every case I handled, not one of them ever went to prosecution. And remember, guys, we've been down this drill before.
Yeah.
We've done this drill. You cannot make a civil settlement. You cannot pay the victim when criminal charges are pending. That's an obstruction of justice. So you've got to make sure that if you're looking for money, and I'm not saying this young woman is, but if you are looking for money, and that is going to be the way you get compensated here, you get your injuries addressed, then you cannot not permit a prosecution. So first and foremost, John, it's the unwillingness of the victim.
Mm-hmm.
Very hard to win a sexual assault case, even a groping case, without the victim, or an unwilling victim. Second, I would rate it the lack of corroboration. But corroboration is a moving target, John. There is some physical corroboration here. DNA was inconclusive, but there are some marks that are relatively inexplicable, and they do tend to support. They certainly could have been obtained elsewhere. Intoxication, John, it's in every case.
Yeah.
I mean, not every, but most of these kind of celebrity cases at 2 in the morning, the victim has been drinking.
I always wonder how prosecutors ever get any rape conviction, Harry. It just seems so hard to get the victim to testify, to get a victim who will not be discredited on the stand. As you point out, alcohol is almost always a factor. There's almost always some level of consent, and the question is, is that line crossed? How do they ever get with smart guys like you on the other side? How do DAs, prosecutors ever get a conviction?
Well, it's hard, Jerry. And remember, there are two types of rape. There's the forcible rape, where there's no question, there's a gun, and that's a question of identification. Okay.
Right.
We're talking about, in these contexts, what we call consent. At what level of consent occurred? What level of consent occurred in the hotel room in Aspen with Kobe Bryant? What level of consent has occurred? What did the young woman, what did the woman agree to? Did she agree to kissing? Did she agree to touching? What did she agree to? And when did she give a clear sign of no? Because the clear sign of no starts you over the line into criminality. So it's a. Let me tell you something. In a consent case, I've tried 6 of them. All 6 resulted in acquittals because it takes an enormously committed and absolutely courageous victim, alleged victim, purported victim, to go forward. And unfortunately, almost in all my cases that I wound up trying, and the other ones I've handled, it is a really cloudy issue, almost always clouded by drugs and alcohol.
When your client in Vegas, was there someone who did his best to persuade her to pursue this, or
No.
was it the opposite?
No, she made the decision unilaterally herself. She's got a business degree. She's very, very intelligent, very accomplished young woman, and she just said, I put myself in the position, and I got myself there, and I'm not willing to do it. I basically laid out all her rights to her.
Did you say, or does anybody say, what about the next girl, the next woman, the next victim?
She did, and what can you do? And unfortunately, I had to say, and I've said this to victims because I've represented both defendants and victims in circumstances like this about equally. And I had to say there will be no anonymity. The minute you come forward, the police will tell you they'll keep your name out of it, and that's just not true.
Yeah.
In today's age, you will be known. You will be on the blogs. There will be discussions about you. And by the way, if you go forward, be prepared to be investigated. Every act you've committed back